Since a huge element of my argument today is focused on the idea that Euphoria is attempting to relate to virtually anyone who is in 2019 that is under the age of 20, I'm going to share a very relatable moment with you. I went through 3 shirts, 2 ties, 2 hats, and like, I want to say 3 pairs of glasses for this outfit because I started off wearing something, but I went out and what I was going to wear for this video, and then I went to Goodwill and I saw these 2 shirts and I was like, I'm going to wear this, but then I got this shirt and I was like, it's too big on me, so I'm going to crop it. And I was like, you know what, I should wear this because it looks like Faz and he's super cute from the first episode, which is why I was really upset from the first episode when I realized, wow, you're going to die by the end of the season. Needless to say, that's part of the hard yet relatable life of being YouTube god like me.
I just wanted you to watch me dissolve slowly in a pool for love.
Rebecca, it's not what you think. I won't hesitate.
I don't even know how the chemistry works.
Ah, bam, we back. We back in season 2. This is season 2. We're just gonna call it just season 2 of Flicks. I feel like the first go round was very intriguing because I kind of dabbled, kind of put my foot into each area of film that I care about with literally one video. Like I had one video about aesthetic and technique, and then I had one video about horror, and then I had one video about wokeness. Very 2016 of me, I know. And although I say I have one video really dedicated to wokeness, like there was a huge woke element in all of my videos that very prevailed, was very domineering, very dictator over my content. And although I still care about that and will still stay on my soapbox, annoyingly so, I don't want it to be like what I'm known for in the film academia world. Like I said, I feel like that's very 2016. It's just not the crux of what I like to discuss when it comes to film. Because it's just not where my heart solely lies. Like, I like all aspects of film, not simply one relegated yet important part of film. I'm very much so visually based. I'm very much so a fan of horror, a fan of art house, a fan of thrillers. So I want to like broaden my horizon to show that aspect, because if I'm going to be known for anything on Film Academia YouTube, I want it to be more encompassing than just, when you make videos discussing things about people, you can't be mean about it. So I was looking around, I was searching very Indiana Jones style, like, okay, what can I talk about on Friday that both encompasses everything that I enjoy talking about and will be satisfying for season 2 of Flicks opening. And then, like I summoned them, the angels of film presented Euphoria, and I was like, okay, I can talk about that. As the show went on, I found myself more frustrated with the show in the sense that I really liked a lot of elements of the show. It was just difficult for me to really articulate what was blocking me from fully just falling into the show. Even when it came to this video, it was very hard for me to explain what my qualms was, and then I sat on it for a little bit, and over time, it started to like map itself out for me. In typical Flicks fashion though, we have to go on a tangent before I explain my actual problem, so just, if you've seen these videos before, you already know what's up, so just get ready.
Don't play with me, you broke my heart, but I'm also so obsessed with you. I don't know if I love you, I don't know if I hate you. Baby, it's time to...
If you've only seen the hype on Twitter, then you may not know that Euphoria is indeed an HBO show, which to me means right off the bat it was going to have what I call HBO fever. Meaning that despite if it's appropriate or not, we're going to see the show from multiple point of views, all of which corresponding at the end, whether they are conflicting or go together. You can see this in a lot of HBO shows such as Big Little Lies, The Wire, and obviously their biggest show, Game of Thrones. And it's obviously been working for them for a very long, continuous time now. In the underbellies of internet discourse, there's been many arguments about what is called the golden age of television. From the name, I'm sure you can gather that it refers to time periods where television is at its peak when it comes to both entertainment, creativity, and overall bodies of work. Some people feel as if there's been 3 separate golden ages of television. The first being when the term was coined in the 50s, the second being the 80s, and the third being the time period that we are currently living in, starting with The Sopranos in 1999. Others feel like that's not true and you have to pick one. That's not important, it's neither here or there. All you need to know is that apparently, supposedly, you have been living in the golden age of television for a while now.
Congratulations! Congratulations! Congratulations!
Congratulations! Congratulations!
Until the Game of Thrones ending happened. Since that ending, people very dramatically have been low-key and very high-key questioning if this is the end of the golden age of television. I keep wanting to say internet. This is a direct opposite as when Game of Thrones first started, and it was getting lots of praise for how it's the pinnacle of modern television, along with Breaking Bad and like 20 plus 50s mobster shows. My theory is less that television is ending and more so that it is evolving. And by evolving, I mean moving on to a new demographic. In the earlier years of the millennium, I think it's pretty fair to say that shows were marketed and made for people who were older. I mean, of all the shows that I just mentioned prior, the majority of them were like TVMA. All of the characters, at least the main characters, were roughly 30 to 40 years old. And although they were in very out there scenarios, the crux of the emotional core of the shows dealt with issues that would apply to 30 to 40-year-old people. Why the change? Well, I just think it's about that time where the lizard people in the sky decide that, you know what, we're gonna switch it up and move on. Also, the generation that they're hopping towards is the same generation that has the time to tweet about character deaths and make those fan edits that you see on Instagram, which is basically just free marketing for television shows. It's the same reason why with animes nowadays, they'll typically have a whole bunch of like cutesy moments with girls cut into GIF-sized bits, just so that someone might post it, and then someone might see that post, and then someone might want to go watch Ninja Cat Harem 3. But okay, to recap, HBO seems to have the pulse on what the upcoming generation wants. The golden age of television is not dead, but just digivolving, and it's most likely due to anime. Next question is, where can we see this in action, and what would this look like if it was happening? Duh, it's obviously Euphoria. It's literally what the video is about. Keep up.
Don't play with me, you broke my heart, but I'm also so obsessed with you. I don't know if I love you, I don't know if I hate you. Baby, it's time to...
Euphoria takes the whole HBO fever thing and kind of plays it more so as these are the lives of these high school kids at this particular school, but it's kind of understood in the back of your head that these kids are supposed to represent all current teenagers about to graduate and go on to college. Which makes me like super qualified because I'm literally the same age as them, so... In this case, we have a main character named Rue, who just had a drug overdose the summer before her, I think, 12th grade, maybe 11th grade, and as such, had to go to rehab over the summer. When she comes back, she meets a girl named Jules, who is a very party-esque, living that life, hooking up with guys on dating apps who are way older than her. She gets involved with one guy who we later find out is the father of Nate, who is the main villain of this show, and as such, Nate tricks her into sending him nudes so that he can use that against her. Nate is struggling with his sexuality, and he's also struggling with the fact that he's in an abusive relationship, him being the abuser, with his girlfriend named Maddie. Maddie basically has an obsession with becoming a sugar baby for life, and as such kind of just puts up with it, but she's also in love with him, so there's that. She also has a best friend group. In that group, we have Cassie, who is a very pretty girl who basically throws her heart at any guy who takes it because her dad was super cool until her parents got a divorce and then became a drug addict and then left home. She gets with, I can't remember his name because he was so boring, who is best friends with Nate, who is basically just Diet Nate, which we will get to later. Also in the group is, in my opinion, the funniest character, Vape Girl, who is just there to show up to these parties and vape on everybody, because she is Vape Girl and teenagers vape nowadays. The fourth of the group is a girl named Kate, who is a fat girl who basically uses the internet and sexuality to make herself feel better about her weight, and as such, goes on an adventure. Kate is good friends with Jules, which is this back around to how everyone's connected. Right off the bat, the fact that they are going for a very Riverdale-esque situation makes more sense with the HBO fever, because in high school, everyone sort of knows somebody, so it's more plausible. Also, the entire show kind of runs on this logic of being told by this unreliable narrator of Rue, whose brain has been drugged out for years now, and as such, it kind of makes more sense how she knows these things, because she's recalling the stories that she remembers kind of out of order. There's also a lot put in to make it the most 2019 show of all time. Like, this show is very 2019. Like, years from now, we will remember this show as the 2019 show. Now, I'm not that pressed about it, really, because it's honestly some of the best parts about the show, given what it's going for. Like, for the most part, everybody talks like teenagers who would be around 17 to 18 in 2019. The costumes and the makeup and everything is somewhat dramatic, but they still look realistic for what a teenager in 2019 would want to and would most likely try to emulate. Especially with the makeup, which has gotten a lot of attention, which I think is really good, because the makeup is dramatic, but it's realistic for what a 17-year-old in some small town would be able to do. This fact is made even more obvious by the fact that a whole bunch of teenagers are trying to recreate these looks and pass off as they're some kind of certified MUA, even though the whole point of the makeup is to be simplistic enough for teenagers to be able to do. But I digress, not the point. The things that the characters are into and how it is portrayed as realistic, whether it be One Direction, Madoka Magica, etc., etc. And although it is about drugs, I like that it skips the whole part of having the teenagers take old man drugs. Like, no one's out here smoking a big old pipe like you see in some other teenage shows. They're taking things like Molly, or they're vaping, or things like that. Also, everyone besides one character who was inserted for the sake of drama acts like they are in a high school while also being confused mentally, because obviously, because this is 2019, everyone has to have some level of mental issues. Especially our main character, who has OCD, bipolar disorder, anxiety disorders, and depression. And I think someone else has ADHD in the show. Also, obviously, the cast is very diverse, which is a good thing. We have a whole bunch of different races, and we have an actual trans person playing a trans person who isn't made a big deal that they are trans. So, good job. Also very 2019. So based off of that, you would take that, okay, the show is going for this relatable but dramatic story about these teenagers at a pivotal point in their life. Dope. Where's my problem? Like, I basically just said that it hits everything in a very accurate way, so I should be enjoying the show. Which I was enjoying those parts of the show. The cinematography, good. Setting, good. Character design, good. All these things are pretty good. But there was something, like I said, that was blocking me from enjoying it completely. And I couldn't say it. I did not know what it was. So I sat and I sat and I sat on it, and I just kept watching the show before I could fully write out what I needed to say for this video. I just knew that my problem had something to do with this shift from the older HBO era to the more current HBO era. And then I saw this article on Vulture, which I will definitely link. And then I was like, yep. Yeah. Euphoria doesn't know if it wants to be Riverdale or if it wants to be a PSA.
Oh, won't somebody please think of the children?
Don't play with me, you broke my heart, but I'm also so obsessed with you. I don't know if I love you, I don't know if I hate you. Baby, it's time to.
Right when the show came out, it was conveniently very close to when me and my ma had just gotten HBO. So we sat down, we started watching the show, and she hated it within 4 minutes. She said it was too
raunchy, it had too much going on, and da-da-da-da.
And I feel like that was sort of the show's intention. However, I feel like they missed the ball because it more so comes off as confusing, because you can't tell if it's trying to market and be for the previous Game of Thrones era viewing public, or if it's meant to relate and be for the current / future Riverdale controlled viewing public. The disconnect comes from the show's seemingly uncomfortability with its own subject matter and how its characters fit into its subject matter. Like, Rue will explain how person B lives their life, and then the show will actively give them lots of consequences to where it's like, well, maybe they don't need to be living their life that way. Even though someone from that target demographic would not care if someone lived their life that way. And this can be seen in virtually every character, especially the female characters. For example, in episode 5, when they're going through Maddie's backstory, like I said, they basically explained that she wanted to be a sugar baby since she was a little girl. Rue doesn't really care. I wouldn't really care. You, audience member, if you are around me and Rue's age, probably would not care about someone living their life as a sugar baby. But if we look past Rue's opinion and the other character's opinion, we can see that what's written is that Maddie's direct need to be a sugar baby and to live that lifestyle resulted in her getting stuck in this abusive relationship. Sure, you can say it's because she loves Nate, but the show also makes it clear that a huge part of it is because she wants to live this sugar baby lifestyle, and therefore she is willing to put up with Nate's tomfoolery. Same with Jules, who spends her time hooking up with grown men, and she explains at the end of the show, like the second to last episode, it's because she wants to feel in control, and for her, that's through her sexuality. Again, target age range wouldn't care. None of the other characters feel the need to shame and or look twice about Jules doing what she does. And while I'm at it, the same can be said for Cassie, who wants to be both sexually liberated as well as having a set partner in life. But because both Jules and Cassie have this extreme urge that has to do with them expressing their sexuality, they both end up with emotionally distant and abusive guys trying to mess up their lives. The difference being for Jules is that she might get put on the sex offender list, and for Cassie, she has to get an abortion. Kat is similar, but not in the sense that she also uses sex, in this case Bitcoin and Pornhub, and like, she's kind of similar where she's trying to be a sugar baby almost, but like a sexy round sugar baby. She lives that lifestyle, but eventually becomes too much for her, and she gets the happy ending when she decides to put all that away and just focus on one guy, and then she gets a boyfriend. So, yay. Hi, hello. Thanks for watching the video this far, and hope you're enjoying the video. You are currently seeing this interlude because I was editing my video and realized, you know what, Daniel? You kind of sound like 7th grade debate club right now. And then I realized that I low-key look like 7th grade right now. AKA a mess. Which is fine because, as you can see, there's clothes back there, so I'm gonna get ready eventually. Totally not the point. Anywho, let me further elaborate my point with this part of the video. So I don't want it to come off as if I believe that these characters should not have any consequences for their actions, and or the creators are actively sexist because the majority of them are female characters. The best way for me to illustrate this is to use my favorite example of want versus need through the movie Aladdin. Quick film term identification. Want versus need basically implies what a character thinks they need, and by the end of the story, what they actually need. In this case with Aladdin, what Aladdin wants is to be presented as a rich prince because he feels like he will then be accepted and will then feel like he belongs. But by the end of the film, what the audience and Aladdin learns is that he needs to accept himself and he needs to just do him. The reason I like Aladdin, though, is because you can explain how this doesn't work with the character of Jasmine. Jasmine's plotline is that she wants to leave the castle and live her own life, as she feels like she shouldn't be forced to marry someone that she doesn't want to marry. And by the end of the film, we're told, oh, the problem wasn't the marriage and for her to live the life of this princess. The problem is that she needs to be able to pick who she wants to marry, then everything's okay. We're told that Jasmine's decision is of her own volition, that this is a huge, empowering moment for her, but it's still within the confines of her having to get married. After her first escape plan, she doesn't even bother mentioning leaving again, and her life almost exclusively gets centered around Prince Ali or Aladdin. And that's what I'm focusing on here. Taking Kate, for example, we're told that she wants to feel empowered, and by doing so, she wants to have sex with whoever she wants. But then we're later on told what she actually needs is just to settle down and be with the guy who obviously wants to be with her. The idea that Jasmine actually does want to leave, the idea that Kat actually does want multiple partners, is framed as what they think they want as opposed to what they actually need. They both need to just have a man and sit down. The films don't want Jasmine to leave, and the show doesn't want Kat to go off and have multiple partners. They want her to be with this guy, and they want Jasmine to be with her guy. Which, from my point of view, makes it seem like they are uncomfortable with the idea of Kat living the life she was, but instead of doing it in the unhealthy and unsafe way, finding a way to do it healthily. Which is the disconnect, because I feel the majority of people around my age would have no problem seeing Kat just live her life. In fact, the most popular parts of her character are always centered around when she's just living her hot girl life. Nobody really seems to care about her boyfriend besides the creators, who are the ones who want her to settle down with this guy. And with Jasmine, everyone focuses on the parts of Jasmine that is, for the most part, separate from Aladdin. Her independence. As it applies to the other girl, Cassie, I don't know if her name is Cassie or Casey or however you say her name. If you're in the South, especially I guess in the Georgia area, you have heard it a million different ways, so I don't know how you're supposed to say her name. Also, I said a line that kind of implies that you can either be in a relationship or have sexual liberation. I didn't mean it that way. I meant it as she wanted both, and the TV show, in my opinion, tried to pin the two of them against each other. So yeah, I hope that gets across what I was trying to say, and I hope you don't take my point as saying that these girls should just be allowed to go around and do whatever they want with no consequences. More so that the things that they are getting consequences for are things that a creator of my generation and around my generation most likely would not view as something that deems consequences, but more so needs a change of tactic as opposed to change of behavior altogether. But yeah, I'm gonna try and look like less of a hot mess now, and hope you enjoy the rest of this video. There's only really 3 characters who don't get patronized in their storylines. The first being McKay, who gets the least screen time and development out of all of them, and is basically just the passive emo, Juice WRLD, hurt boy, sad boy type of the next character. As I said earlier, Nate is the closest thing we can have to an antagonist in the show. He is abusive towards Maddie. He messes with Jules because he doesn't want his dad to go to jail. He almost gets arrested for abusing Maddie, but he tells her to say that it's some guy named Tyler who she had sex with when they were like off because they have an on and off relationship. And then he threatens Jules with the nudes that she sent to him, thinking that he was someone else. He uses that to make her say that it was Tyler. He's painted as this like evil mastermind who is weaving everyone to fit into his narrative, but it doesn't match up with what they're trying to convey, and this is where they're not very 2019, because he is the character who is presented to be the most mentally unhinged as far as like his mental disorders go, as well as fitting to the tired, old, like, hasn't been around for years trope that almost everyone knows you can't do, which is he is coded to maybe be gay or bisexual, and therefore he is the crazy character. Like, this trope has been around for years. The last time I saw it was like around 2014 on one of those like NBC TBD DDD cop shows. And it's really, it never looks good because it's always just thrown in there like, oh, he's a crazy killer and also he's gay, cause, you know, representation. His plans aren't even that great because all he does is snitch on people, threaten to snitch on people, or threaten to beat up people. And the way that he goes about it would be very easy to catch him in, which is evident by the fact that in the last episode, Maddie takes one of his DVDs and makes a copy on her laptop. So it's not that hard to play his game against him. There's only one character whose storyline manages to not be convoluted, to actually be impactful, and to not feel like a dad lecture. And that is our hero, Rue. The world is presented from her point of view, so whenever she's feeling angry, manic, sad, happy, euphoric, the world and the story and everything around her will show aspects of that. She is the character who fits most into the main theme and idea of the show. That this idea of euphoria is scary and upsetting because with every high, you will have an equal low at some point. And that's good. If the show had focused all of the characters in on this theme, it would have been amazing. And the last episode does a good job of cutting out all the fat and focusing on this, so it's kind of like you guys had the ability to actually scratch that. The last 2 episodes did a good job of that. But I mean, I guess they had to spend all the time setting up the story to get to those last 2 episodes, so I don't know, but it was a disappointing watch to get to the last 2 episodes and be like, wow, why wasn't the entire show just like this?
Don't play with me, you broke my heart, but I'm also so obsessed with you. I don't know if I love you, I don't know if I hate you. Baby, it's time to...
It's really upsetting because I really wanted to like this show because, like I said, with Rue's storyline especially, there's a lot of good elements here. Another one that I didn't really focus on, but again, the cinematography was really strong in pushing the theme again, to where the highest highs were beautiful and amazing, and the lowest lows were beautiful but in a very dark and scary way. And it's not like they couldn't have done this story about broken characters doing bad things because they've done this before without being condescending. Like with The Wire, or Oz, or The Sopranos. All of those shows have characters who are deeply flawed and do bad things, but there's no finger wagging about how they need to come indoors and just stop with the vape pen. My advice to remedy this is to take away the fact that every character who vapes, has sex, and has mental issues immediately has some kind of complex and or consequence for their actions. Or maybe just make it to where not every single character vapes, has sex, and has mental issues. Or you know what, maybe just hire me, okay? I need a job anyway.